Hey, you want to make sense of an election and figure out what it means in the future? This is who you have on. Julie Roginsky, who's a Democratic strategist and president of Optimus Communications, and Mike DuHaime, Republican strategist and partner at Mercury. And by the way, check them out. Their weekly column in the Star Ledger and NJ.com called Friendly Fire. Julie, is that the right name, Friendly Fire?
That's what they came up with. We don't take any credit for that one.
How is it that
send your complaints to Tom Moran.
Oh, yeah, Tom Moran, that's editorial page editor at the Ledger and NJ.com. Let me ask you something, Julie, real quick. Your biggest takeaway, because I read you and Mike every week, and you said this in the column, but I want you to say it here. Biggest message for you as a Democratic strategist, takeaway from the November 2nd election. This will be seen well after that. Go ahead.
Wake up, my fellow Democrats, and understand that New Jersey just sent you a very strong message. It's always been about affordability. It will always be about affordability. Anything else that we talk about has to take a back seat to the #1 perennial issue in New Jersey, which is affordability. And every time my party forgets about that, every single time, we don't do well in elections, and this was no exception.
Mike.
I agree with Julie completely on that. I think Governor Murphy and his team and many Democrats misread the election of 2017 and then the midterms of 2018 and presidential of 2020 as some sort of mandate to go further left, especially on economic issues. While New Jersey is certainly to the left when it comes to social issues, it is not economically. It's very much in the center economically. And Democrats here embarked on a pretty far left agenda that was billions in borrowing, higher taxes, more spending, and voters really wanted them to pump the brakes on that. And given that there are 1 million more Democrats in this state, it really is shocking to me how close Jack Ciattarelli came. He ran a good campaign, but also Republicans picking up in the legislature for the first time in many years, and really for the first time feeling optimistic about maybe taking back the legislature in 2 years. I think that shows you just how bad this election was for Democrats and what a marked improvement it was for Republicans.
Julie, let me ask you this. You've run a lot of campaigns, you've consulted, you understand what works, what doesn't work. So, and again, Governor Murphy, we had him on an in-depth 30-minute interview, same thing with Jack Ciattarelli. Check out our website if you want to go back and listen to what they said on the issues. But a lot of what the Murphy campaign was about was saying that Jack Ciattarelli was tied to Donald Trump, that he was there, which is a fact. He was there at the Stop the Steal rally. Ciattarelli argues he didn't know what it was. Okay. Ciattarelli voted for Trump twice, said he liked his policies. The Murphy campaign, a lot of it said Ciattarelli is an acolyte, if you will, of Trump. Good enough message?
No, obviously not. If as Mike said, there's more than 1 million registered Democrats in New Jersey, and most of them either stayed home or came out to vote for Jack Ciattarelli. I mean, not most of them, but enough of them that this made it a 2.5-point election as of right now. Look, Donald Trump is in people's rearview mirror, and even if he weren't, this is a state election. Jack Ciattarelli has nothing whatsoever to do with Donald Trump, and voters are not stupid. They understand that. It's one thing for Mikey Sherrill or Josh Gottheimer or Tom Malinowski or Andy Kim or anybody who's running next year.
For United States Congress, go ahead.
United States Congress, excuse me, thank you, to tie themselves to the opposition to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is a federal elected official. In New Jersey, when it comes to state races, and we're like, Democrats, and I fall prey to this as well, except I learned my lesson in 2019. We're like Lucy with, we're like Charlie Brown with Lucy's holding the football, and we keep going after these social issues constantly when it comes to state elections, when the voters keep saying, I mean, look, I got involved in the Florio years, which is how old Mike and I are, but I threw you under the bus there, Mike, by the way, along with me in the age thing. But, the first elections I really paid attention to were the Florio gubernatorial election in '89. And the reality is, ever since then, Democrats, in my memory, have always sent the same message, as well as Republicans and independents. When it comes to state elections, focus on pocketbook issues. That's all they care about. Every once in a while, I forget about that as well. I would not have forgotten about it this year. I think the Murphy administration, quite honestly, did. And you cannot go around telling people that happy days are here again and things are great when property taxes keep going up, when you're paying more at the pump, when you're paying more in tolls to drive the turnpike, so on and so forth. Every focus group I've seen, voters are screaming out and they're saying we cannot get blood from the stone anymore. Democrats need to pay attention to that and speak to voters and meet them where they are and stop telling voters about Donald Trump when they want to hear about pocketbook issues when it comes to state elections.
Mike, and again, don't want to do horse race stuff or analyze politics too much. I'm interested more in policy, but Jack Ciattarelli saying to Donald Trump, don't come here. That mattered. Don't come here and campaign for me.
Yeah, I mean, this is in New Jersey and in Virginia that was successful in that, to Julie's point, voters are thinking about the future, not the past. Donald Trump is not the president anymore. While he was president or a candidate, voters were sending a message they wanted to go in a different direction. He's not anymore. Democrats made the same mistake in 2009, spending tens of millions of dollars trying to make Chris Christie into George W. Bush. George W. Bush actually had lower approval ratings at that time than Donald Trump does now. It didn't work then, and it's not going to work in the future. The same thing happened.
You mean when Christie was running for governor?
When Governor Christie was running for governor. That's exactly right. And voters, to Julie's point, voters in New Jersey and Virginia, they separate these state elections from federal elections very well. The voters who turn out understand the governor here doesn't have a vote for the United States Supreme Court and doesn't have a vote in the United States Senate. So I think it was a mistake for Democrats to try to nationalize this election on social issues. And for Republicans, it was beneficial to bring it back to local issues, bring it back to taxes, bring it back to bread and butter issues. And actually, and Democrats in Washington not being able to get out of their own way on the trillions.
Okay, that's what I'm about to say, Mike. I'm sorry for interrupting, Mike. I want to follow up on that.
Yeah.
Julie, both you and Julie say it's not a national election, but so many of the polls that we saw, not the ones that were all wrong about the election and that would be a blowout, but the ones that afterwards, the exit polls said people were concerned that the Democrats in the White House, together with Democrats in Congress, yes, we're taping this at the end of November, and some things have happened. But before that election, they couldn't get it together. They couldn't get the infrastructure bill passed. The Build Back Better bill did not pass. You're saying that did not hurt Phil Murphy, Mike?
I'm saying it did. I'm saying it did. It made it worse. You can't ignore the fact that Biden won Virginia by 10 and New Jersey by almost 17. You can't ignore that changed, partly because it played into the same narrative. Democrats in Washington were not arguing over the merits of the plan, which I know Julie will comment on, their messaging problems. They were arguing about how many trillions of dollars to spend. And that's on the heels of in New Jersey, we're going to borrow billions, we're going to raise taxes, we're going to raise tolls. At some point, voters say enough is enough. And so the problem for Democrats in New Jersey was that the message coming out of Washington was kind of the same, that narrative of like spend, spend, spend. Eventually, voters were supportive at the beginning of COVID, but eventually enough is enough for most voters.
No,
Julie,
Go ahead, Julie. That if I can, Steve, because look, Democrats, as we're taping this now, just passed with the Republican support. I might add this humongous.
Yeah, we're taping this on the 16th of November. Go ahead.
Right, with this humongous infrastructure bill, which is going to be a boon for New Jersey, and not just New Jersey, but the region. The reality is that until voters start to feel that in a really tangible way, it's just numbers on a piece of paper. And so the Democrats could have passed this bill in August. And I still don't think.
Why didn't they, Julie? Why couldn't the moderates and the progressives?
Because my party, and Steve, you know this as well, our party does nothing more, my party does nothing better than fight amongst themselves until they finally.
We're pretty good at that too, Julie.
You guys are, I don't even want to talk, at least we're still a party. You guys are a cult, not you, Mike, but the rest of the Republican Party. Look, I mean.
That was snarky, but good. I like that.
See the way she removed me from it, but took a shot. That's why it's friendly fire. She tried.
Julie, it's not so friendly fire at this moment. Go ahead. Julie, go ahead.
But my point is not that. My point is until voters really start to feel something tangible, until they start to be put to work building bridges, until they start to actually drive on roads where they don't have to get a blowout with their tire because the roads are better, they're not going to be able to really understand, and nor should they, some mythical $1 trillion piece of legislation that doesn't really affect them. And
inflation's at a 30-year high. I mean, these things matter. Costs matter. And I think.
But who do you blame? But Mike, you can't blame that on one politician.
Whoever's in charge gets the blame. You know how it works, Steve. Joe Biden promised everything would be better. Phil Murphy said the state was completely broke and he was going to fix it. And voters don't buy it. They don't buy that either one of them are doing a good job. And so Joe Biden can say this is happening on his watch. The last time we saw this kind of inflation, it happened under Jimmy Carter's watch, right? They're both Democrats. Voters understand these things, and whether they need to do a better job of getting out and explaining, why it's going to be better, not just explaining that it's not their fault.
And by the way, we get some of the Democrats, including those in the Biden administration, argue that we in the media have not done a good enough job breaking down and explaining what this is for. And we're trying to tell people.
I never heard anybody do that before. Blame the media.
No, all I'm saying is we'll tell people the money goes to Amtrak and the Gateway Tunnel and climate change and childcare. We'll break all that down. But last time I checked, seriously, it's our job to help inform. It's not our job to push anyone's agenda, Democrat or Republican. That's Julie. That's Mike. This is Friendly Fire. See you next time.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by Hackensack Meridian Health, NJM Insurance Group, Valley Bank, the Fidelco Group, Choose New Jersey, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Suez North America, Johnson & Johnson, and by Summit Health. Promotional support provided by Meadowlands Chamber and by bestofnj.com.
Hi, I'm Abby. You might see me as an ordinary person, but I've been living with a brain injury since 2018. Opportunity Project gave me hope, and I've gained confidence through job skill training and helping my family. Despite my challenges with memory, I see a possibility to keep improving.
If you have a brain injury, you don't have to face your road to recovery alone. Learn more about Opportunity Project and its partnership with Children's Specialized Hospital.